Somewhere in the middle of the 2010s, Yoenis Céspedes was one of the most dangerous hitters alive. And somewhere in that same stretch, he also got hurt by a wild boar, vanished mid-game in Atlanta, and never played in the major leagues again. Both of those sentences are true. They're about the same person. And that's exactly why so many people get his story wrong. Ask a casual fan what they remember about Céspedes, and it's the boar, the mystery, the tabloid stuff. Almost nobody starts with the fact that for a 2-year stretch, this man might have been the best pure power hitter in baseball. So before we get to what happened to him, let's talk about how good he actually was. Céspedes grew up in a small town in Cuba's Granma province. He was the son of Estela Milanes, an Olympic softball pitcher, and Crescencio Céspedes, a Cuban league catcher who separated from her when Yoenis was just 1 year old. He spent 8 seasons starring for Granma in Cuba's Serie Nacional, hitting .319 with 169 home runs over 528 games, and represented Cuba internationally, including a .458 showing with 2 home runs in the 2009 World Baseball Classic. By 2011, everyone in the sport knew his name. And in the summer of that year, he and 6 others made a 23-hour speedboat run to the Dominican Republic to defect. It came at a cost. He left behind a young son, Yoenis Jr. The two would only speak by phone for years afterward, while Céspedes tried, unsuccessfully, to get him into the United States. Establishing residency in the Dominican Republic made him a true MLB free agent instead of a draft-eligible amateur. And on February 13, 2012, the Oakland A's beat out 5 other teams to sign him for 4 years and $36 million, the richest contract ever given to a Cuban defector to that point. Céspedes made his major league debut on March 28, 2012 against Seattle, and hit .292 with 23 home runs and 82 RBIs as a rookie, helping Oakland steal the AL West. Then he became a highlight reel. He won the 2013 Home Run Derby as a last-minute injury replacement and defended the title in 2014, becoming just the second player in history to repeat. Then he bounced around. On July 31, 2014, Oakland traded him to Boston for John Lester and Johnny Gomes. 5 months later, Boston flipped him to Detroit for Rick Porcello. In barely a calendar year, Céspedes had gone from franchise cornerstone to a player on his 3rd team in 3 cities. 13 minutes before the July 31, 2015 trade deadline, the Mets acquired him from Detroit for 2 prospects, Michael Fulmer and Luis Cessa. New York was 52-50 and chasing Washington in the NL East. Fulmer, ironically, would go on to win AL Rookie of the Year in Detroit the very next season, a fact Mets fans had never fully forgiven, given what Céspedes was about to do for them. Over his final 57 games as a Met that year, he hit 17 home runs, 9 of them in a single 13-game stretch, and the Mets ran down Washington and won the division going away. Between his 2 stops, he finished 2015 hitting .291 with 35 home runs and 105 RBIs, then carried New York all the way to the World Series where they lost to Kansas City in 5 games. After opting out of a 3-year, $75 million deal following the pennant run, Céspedes re-signed with the Mets in November 2016 on a 4-year, $110 million contract, the richest in franchise history. For 1 more season, he was worth every dollar. In 2016, he made his 2nd All-Star team, won a Silver Slugger, and finished 8th in NL MVP voting while hitting 31 home runs with a .530 slugging percentage. He reached 20 home runs by July 1st that year, the fastest any Met had gotten there since Carlos Beltran in 2006. And after coming back from a strained quad in August, New York went 26-10 in the games he started. Off the field, he rolled into spring training with a fleet of custom cars worth nearly $1 million. He was the flashiest guy in the clubhouse, and for 1 more year, the best one too. And then his body started falling apart, 1 piece at a time. In 2017, left and right hamstring strains limited him to 81 games, even though he still tied a franchise record with a 3-homer game in April, becoming the first player in Mets history with 2 separate 3-homer performances. And he became one of just 7 Cuban-born players ever to reach 150 career home runs. In 2018, he played only 38 games before undergoing surgery to remove bone calcification from his right heel that August, and his left heel that October. July 20th, 2018 turned out to be his last game in a Mets uniform for nearly 2 years. He spent all of 2019 rehabbing his heels, and then in May of that year, while still recovering, everything got stranger. The Mets announced Céspedes had suffered multiple fractures in his right ankle in what the general manager called a violent fall at his Florida ranch, unrelated to baseball. Nobody would say more than that. Radio hosts speculated he'd fallen off a horse. For 8 months, it stayed a mystery. Then the real story came out, confirmed independently by Mets officials, the commissioner's office, and the players' union. Céspedes kept traps on his ranch to catch wild boars, and when one was let out of the trap, it either charged him or startled him badly enough that he stepped backward into a hole and shattered his ankle. The Mets stopped paying him and filed a grievance. The two sides eventually settled by cutting his guaranteed money for the final 2 years of the deal from $58.5 million down to roughly $28.9 million, with most of the difference converted into incentives he'd only collect if he actually played. In the 4+ seasons since he'd signed that $110 million contract, injuries had limited him to just 316 total games, in which he'd still managed to hit .279 with 76 home runs, a reminder of exactly how good he still was in the moments he actually got on the field. Somehow, though, he made it back one more time. On opening day 2020 in the shortened COVID-delayed season, Céspedes hit a go-ahead home run against Atlanta, the first home run by a designated hitter in a National League game in Major League history, thanks to that year's universal DH rule. For one afternoon, it looked like the old Céspedes was still in there. He then went 5 for 31 with 2 home runs over his next 7 games, and on August 2nd, he simply didn't show up for a game in Atlanta. Mid-game, with the Mets unable to locate him, his agent announced that Céspedes had opted out of the rest of the season, citing COVID-19 concerns. Even his own teammates weren't sure what to believe. Outfielder Brandon Nimmo later said players had heard conflicting stories about why he'd really left. Céspedes never played in the major leagues again. He tried to work his way back. In 2021, he held a private showcase for scouts in Florida, and no team signed him. In 2022, he actually returned to competitive baseball, not in the MLB, but with the Dominican Winter League. That August, the Mets brought him back to Citi Field for Old Timers Day. In November of 2024, Céspedes said publicly that he wanted one more shot in the majors, and specifically that if he got it, he wanted it to be with New York. As of now, that comeback hasn't happened. So what actually happened to Yoenis Céspedes? The honest answer is a lot less mysterious than legend makes it sound. It was hamstrings and heels and one brutally unlucky encounter with an animal on his own property that stacked on top of each other until a Hall of Fame caliber peak got buried under injury reports and tabloid headlines. In 8 big league seasons, he hit .273 with 165 home runs and 870 hits, numbers that undersell just how terrifying he was for that one summer in Queens and the seasons after it. For that stretch, Yoenis Céspedes was as good as anybody in baseball. The wild boar, the disappearing act in Atlanta, that's the stuff people remember. But before any of it, he was pretty damn good. So what are your memories of Yoenis Céspedes? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, check out this one that looks at the career of Jorge Posada. And lastly, if you like these type of videos and want to see more, subscribe to KDub. Thanks for watching.